6 p.m.
The news from Guyana, the region, and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
The news at 6 comes to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken KFC. An inquiry into the circumstances surrounding the sinking of a trawler more than 1 month ago has found several lapses. The Alliance for Change wants fertilizer to be subsidized. Regionally, Antigua and Barbuda wants a sub-regional organization of Eastern Caribbean states to take a united position against Europe's virtual outlaw of purchased citizenships. The leader of Trinidad and Tobago's opposition United National Congress may be challenged for a post at our party's next internal elections. And internationally, we got the latest in the war between Russia and Ukraine. The News at 6 comes to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Planning to watch TV or listen to the radio or just enjoy a lime? Then grab a bucket of KFC finger-licking good chicken and enjoy the exciting taste of KFC and their branches on Vicinjan Road, Mandela Avenue, Regent Street, Ink Street, Staburg Square, Breedenhoop, Parika, Movie Town, or now at the Amazonia Mall at Providence. Now open from 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. You'll always be enjoying the great taste of KFC.
It's finger-licking good.
And now the news in detail. Public Works Minister Juan Edgel says an inquiry has found that the captain of the trawler that sank several weeks ago had informed the Noble House Seafoods that the vessel had been taking in water. However, Mr. Edgel says that Noble House never reported the occurrence until 9 hours later. He says the trawler captain was not licensed and he and his crew were not trained in safety measures. He said the inquiry found that a fake license had been produced by the now deceased captain to Noble House Seafoods. The Public Works Minister said the report of the Board of Inquiry's investigation into the marine incident involving the trawler World Friend 307 on February 19 would be made public and provided to the families of the three deceased persons. According to Mr. Edgel, there was no evidence that a certified marine surveyor had surveyed that boat and said it was worthy for sea. Mr. Edgel has said once culpability or negligence is established, Attorney General Anil Nandalal would be asked to advise on compensation. He said the captains work on a freelance basis with fishing companies. Director General of the Maritime Administration Stephen Thomas says if the company had notified the authorities that the trawler had been in distress, nearby vessels could have responded to that distress call. The Alliance for Change, AFC, is calling on the government to subsidize the price of fertilizer. That political party, which is part of the wider oppositional coalition, says the state-owned Guyana Rice Development Board should reduce the levy to zero. The levy was previously $8 US per ton, but now it's $6 US. The AFC says that monies accumulated over the years from the levy should be used by the government to subsidize the price of fertilizer. If that is not sufficient, that political party is also recommending that some of the oil revenues be used to subsidize the fertilizer price. The Guyana government has already decided to subsidize electricity and water bills, although the operational costs of the Guyana Water Inc. and the Guyana Power and Light have increased due to the rise in the price of fuel. The government has also reduced all taxes and fuel to zero in an effort to reduce the price at the pumps. The Guyana Elections Commission, GECOM, says none of its workers is visiting homes. The electoral management body says it is not engaged in any such exercise and no one has been authorized to collect information from anyone through house-to-house visits. People's Progressive Party activists have been visiting houses in several areas to verify that persons on the registration list are still living at the stated addresses. GECOM explains that registration staff and scrutineers are required to visit given residential addresses of applicants for registration to verify that the concerned persons actually live at the addresses they would have provided. The electoral management body says such visits are made only after agreement between the applicant and the concerned GCOM staff would have agreed on a date and a time. 7 graduate engineers hired by SBM Offshore have arrived in Singapore for hands-on training on the Prosperity floating production storage and offloading vessel. That vessel is being constructed to support the Payara development in the Stabroek Block offshore Guyana. The 5 men and the 2 women arrived in Singapore on Monday. In August last year, they traveled to the Netherlands, where they spent 6 months undergoing training in different areas while also working with a team designing the vessel. The graduate engineers returned to Guyana in February before the final stint of training. They were recruited from the University of Guyana in 2021 after undergoing a rigorous vetting process. SBM Offshore has said it intends to repeat the program given how well it has been going and the clear benefits being derived. At the conclusion of the 18-month program, the graduates are to be fully immersed in the company's Guyana operations in roles that they're firstly most interested in and secondly, which fit their background and areas of training. Turning to news now from the region. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness has served a notice to the visiting Duke and the Duchess of Cambridge that Jamaica intends to break ties with the British monarchy. He says Jamaica intends to attain and fulfill its true ambitions as an independent, developed and prosperous country in short order. Holness's notice that Jamaica will remove the Queen as the head of state and become a republic comes 4 months after Barbados officially took the step. The Royal Highnesses arrived in Jamaica on Tuesday for a 3-day official visit to the island as part of activities to celebrate the Platinum Jubilee of Her Majesty the Queen. This year marks 70 years since the Queen's ascension to the throne. Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown has called on member countries of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States OECS to provide a united front in a bid to stave off efforts by the European Union to derail the controversial Citizenship by Investment program. Under the CBI, foreign investors are afforded citizenship of a country in return for making a significant investment in the socio-economic development of the particular country. Several Caribbean countries have instituted CBI programs. Speaking during a webinar on the topic, Fight or Flight, the future of citizenship by investment, the Antigua and Barbuda leader acknowledged that there was some risk in selling citizenships. However, he said so far there was no evidence that anyone has used the CBI programs from any of the Eastern Caribbean member states to commit terrorism or launder money at the scale of what is happening in North America and Europe. The United States has moved to decline visas to holders of passports obtained by CBI, and the European Union has passed a law giving countries 3 years to phase out the program or face visa requirements for all of its passport holders. The EU Parliament has called for an EU levy of a meaningful percentage on the investments made until what it terms golden passports are phased out and indefinitely for golden visas within the book. The resolution passed by the Parliament with 595 votes to 12 and 74 abstentions says golden passports should be phased out fully. Brown told the debate that the smaller countries are being targeted by the bigger countries that have been offering similar type CBI programs. In Trinidad, an opposition United National Congress parliamentarian is not ruling out the possibility of challenging Kamla Prasad-Besesser for that party's leadership whenever the next internal elections are held. Trinidad Newsday reports that he left his possibility open while speaking with reporters. In the past, the UNC and PNM have put their respective internal elections on hold in years when a general or a local election is taking place. Mr. Rudilal Munilal did not say whether he would contest the next UNC internal election as part of a slate led by Prasad Besesser or be part of a rival slate led by someone else. In the last UNC internal election in December 2020, Prasad Vassa's slate scored a landslide victory over a slate by former Government Minister Vasant Bharath. Article 18 of the United National Congress's Constitution says the party's political leader serves for a 3-year period and all other members of the UNC's national executive serve for 2 years. Unless they resign or are removed from office before their tenure ends, executive members remain in office until their successors are elected. This means Prasad Vassa's term of office as UNC political leader will end in December 2023 unless internal elections are held before that time. Party sources said internal elections are due around December. And now we go to the BBC World Service for the latest bulletin of international news.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. President Biden says NATO has never been more united than it is today, and that Russia's President, Vladimir Putin, is getting the opposite of what he intended when Russia invaded Ukraine. Mr. Biden was speaking after a summit in which leaders approved plans to send new battle groups to 4 countries. From Brussels, Jessica Parker has more.
An emergency summit called here in Brussels. They agreed to reinforce NATO's eastern flank, still resisting calls, of course, from Ukraine to enforce a no-fly zone, warning that that could basically risk leading to World War III. But here tonight, President Biden, I think, will be speaking to EU leaders about a variety of subjects, but not least of all, America's push to potentially supply the EU with more liquefied natural gas to help the EU wean itself off Russian energy supplies.
Mr. Biden said he also backed excluding Russia from the G20 group of major economies and said if other countries disagreed, he'd suggested Ukraine should attend as an observer. The United States has announced further sanctions on hundreds of Russian companies and individuals. Those to be sanctioned include more than 300 members of Russia's lower house of parliament and 48 defence companies. Here's Nomia Iqbal.
These additional set of financial sanctions will target hundreds of members of the Russian Duma, the country's parliament, and the central bank's gold reserves. The US says it also plans to take more steps to prevent Russia from attempting to prop up its economy. President Biden has continued to face pressure from Democrats and Republicans here to do more for Ukraine, and he's announced 100,000 refugees will be welcomed into the US. An extra $1 billion is being sent in food, medicine, water and other supplies.
Ukraine says it's conducted the first proper prisoner exchange with Russia since the war began a month ago. According to the Deputy Prime Minister, 10 Ukrainian soldiers were exchanged for 10 Russian occupiers. A top advisor to President Zelensky says Ukrainian troops have destroyed the Russian army's forward command post in southern Ukraine. Alexei Arestovich claimed Russian offensives all over Ukraine had ground to a halt. Frank Gardner looks at why the Russian military effort appears to have stalled.
The Kremlin's plan was simple and, as it turned out, absurdly over-optimistic. Cross the border on 3 fronts, capture the big cities with overwhelming force, and then the Ukrainian government would soon collapse. It hasn't turned out like that. There is the strength of Ukrainian resistance. Most of the population has rallied round their government. The troops are using Western-supplied weapons, and when it comes to getting inside big cities, Russia doesn't have enough troops to take on the defenders in most cases. Then there's poor Russian tactics. Russian commanders on the ground have largely failed to take full advantage of all the tools at their disposal.
BBC News. The UN General Assembly has demanded the protection of civilians in Ukraine and has criticised Russia for causing desperate humanitarian conditions. The resolution proposed by Ukraine had overwhelming support. Neda Tawfiq reports.
This vote was a nearly identical outcome to the first resolution passed during the Assembly's emergency session on Ukraine. That resolution on March 2nd demanded an immediate withdrawal of Russia's forces and called for the protection of civilians. Russia supported an effort by South Africa to put forward a rival draft that called for the cessation of hostilities by all parties without singling out Moscow. However, the General Assembly voted against consideration of South Africa's draft after Ukraine objected and accused Russia of instigating the move.
In other news, Ethiopia has declared an indefinite humanitarian truce, which it says will ensure the free flow of aid to the north of the country. The UN says 90% of the population in the northern Tigray region is in dire need of humanitarian assistance. Anne Soy reports.
Since civil war broke out in the north in November 2020, the movement of aid to the region has been seriously hampered. The federal government was accused of enforcing a blockade, which it denied. It now hopes the truce will improve the humanitarian situation there and lead to a resolution of the conflict. Tigrayan forces have not responded to the announcement. Meanwhile, the UK has welcomed the declaration and said it will support a scale-up of the aid response.
Officials in central Somalia say the number of people killed in 2 jihadist attacks on Wednesday has risen to 48. More than 100 people were wounded in the blasts near the seat of the regional state presidency of Hirshabelle and a hospital. The Al-Shabaab militant group has claimed responsibility. BBC News.
And that's the news to the moment.
With immediate effect, KFC's Vlissingen Road drive-thru will be open up to 1 a.m. all week. The Movie Town drive-thru will be open up to 1 a.m. on weekends and midnight Monday to Thursday. The Mandela Avenue drive-thru will be open until 1 a.m. on weekends and 11 p.m. Monday to Thursday. New opening times for KFC's drive-thrus at Vlissingen Road, Movie Town and Mandela Avenue.
And now for a recap of the highlights. An inquiry into the sinking of a trawler more than 1 month ago has found several lapses. The Alliance for Change wants fertilizer to be subsidized. Originally, Antigua and Barbuda wants a sub-regional organization of Eastern Caribbean states to take a united position against Europe's virtual outlaw of purchased citizenships. The leader of Trinidad and Tobago's opposition United National Congress may be challenged for her post at her party's next internal elections. The news came to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.
Time in Guyana, 18 hours 17.
For the toughest jobs, there's only one original motor oil, Valvoline, powering the world's heavy-duty engines in every corner of the world. You can trust the super protection of the original to keep your business moving forward. Valvoline, the original that never stops improving. Distributed by Swiss Machinery, Eccles Public Road. Telephone 233-3821 or 2495 or WhatsApp 691-1732.
We now join the BBC World Service in London.
But is now planning to go back to help those still trapped. She's been speaking to the BBC.
Давайте так, я вам скажу.